What's up, y'all? It's Matt, Dlux, DluxFab.com. Today we're going to do a video on how to assemble SSDLUX rear straight axle. So, pretty basic stuff, but here we go. Now, I've already assembled the tubes in this SSD center housing. One thing to bear in mind, excuse me, our Nessies are going to come spec'd out with a Pro 44 rear housing from SSD. Has more clearance on it and it's smoother on the bottom. So that's why we're doing that the way we're doing it. Another thing to note, when you put these bearings in this housing, as I already have here, there's a larger inner and a smaller outer. Just make sure those things are all the way in, good and tight. Now, this axle I'm using underdrive rear ring and pinion. This is a Vanquish 33/8 tooth setup. These are your standard AR-44 style gears. Get your bearings in, drop in your pinion. Make sure to do that first before you bolt all the other stuff together. Well, ask me how I know. Another thing to note, you have to assemble your 6-bolt locker and your rear gear. This is already greased up because I already had this truck together once. When you start all 6 of these screws, it's good to Loctite those just because they're in there spinning around. And then when you get these bearings, see they're not sealed bearings. You need to pack those full of grease. As you can see, that's good and gooped up. You want to push grease through those bearings, guys. Just like old school open ball bearings. I don't know why they use those in the DX44 style or the AR44 style rear axles, but they do. They work fine. We haven't had a problem with them yet. Now, on this Pro 44, get this grease off my hands. On this Pro 44 rear housing, the ring gear is only going to drop in that one side because there's only room for it there. And drop that in. Once again, get this gnarly grease off my fingers, otherwise it'll go everywhere. And then you'll push this, seat that all the way in. Boom, there it went. Make sure that's all the way home. Spins nice and free. Now, another thing to note, when you bolt these together and you drop your ring and pinion in, you got your pinion and your ring gear, all that sorted up. If you turn this and it's nice and smooth, that's what you want. Now, if it sits in a little bit like that, just a little bit, it's going to feel notchy. But when you mount the drive shaft, it's going to set this depth on this to make that spin smooth. So, just something to note. Now, this Pro 44 housing comes with these little straps to hold this down. The flat part goes to the inside, right? So that'll go like so. And the beveled part goes to the outside. Just like that. Let's get all those screws, those 4 screws that hold that all together. Start all 4 here. Hope you all having a good day. Super sunny to start the day, but now it's all rainy and gloomy outside. Still pretty warm though, which I'm a fan of. I've had about enough winter. I'm ready for warm temperatures and crawling season. Get out, drive trucks, and hang out with everybody. Well, those are started. I'm gonna run them home with the driver. Now just snug with the driver and then come back and do all that by hand. Final torque. As I've said before, guys, if you guys haven't invested in these MIP drivers, they're much better than all those other brands you see there out there around and about. So now that's all together. See how that works. As you can see already, as I mentioned it, I already installed the tubes in this housing. You guys know how to do that. I didn't need to show that again. Now your Pro 44 is going to come with 2 different covers. This cover is just a cover. It's not supporting any weight or any of that stuff. So these little baby screws. One's going to look like the top on the bottom here, all the way around the same with screws all the way around. The other one's going to have this little skid dealio built in. I chose to use this one because it's a smoother transition. So that'll go right on here. And I left all those bolts in there. I've already started them. They're kind of a pain to get started, especially if you have big sausage fingers like I do. But I'm going to run these down with power, and then I'll snug them up by hand. And if you're messing with these little screws that are real small with your drivers, you want to make sure you got a good fresh driver. A worn one is going to, one, make this difficult, and two, it's going to try to strip out these little Allen heads, because there isn't much purchase. Once these things get rounded out, you're going to be fighting to get them out. So if your little 1.5 millimeter driver is worn out, you need to replace that. Go ahead and grab a new one. Ah, almost got myself there. Now we'll go through and check all these. Don't over torque these, you'll pull these right through this plastic cover. It's good and snug's all you need. Like I said, all it's doing is keeping dirt out. Not a big deal. Now, there's our basic assembly. Now we're gonna put shafts in. These are 8mm stub shaft versions, because that's like what I prefer. So they got a big old bearing on there. There's already has a set screws already installed in the end of these. So there you go. And there's also something to note. There's a little shim, if you can see it or not. There's a shim on the inside of this bearing, right here. That's where that shim goes. So we're gonna slide this home. There's a little snap ring here, inside snap ring, inside seat clip, whatever you want to use. I'm going to use my handy dandy shock ring pliers. Get these snap rings in. Sometimes this can be kind of a pain, which is the nature of snap rings. Alright, got those in. Had to use a little more force but I would like to, but sometimes they're just gonna be like that. Now, there you go. Your whole rotating assembly side of the axle is good to go. Now, next step we're gonna go is the truss. Now, if you go to install this truss and your bolt holes don't quite line up, they're a little off kilter one way or the other, you need to loosen these screws up here and give this a little twist. Just like I said, there's a little bit of play in this, and that can get you together a little off kilter if you're not careful. So next step, we're gonna put all the bolts in for this truss. Just grab all of them over here. As you see, there's red Loctite on all of these. I've had this together once before. Same as always, start all of them before you crank any of them down. Oh, thought that one was started. Evidently it wasn't. Sausage finger problems. Now, I like a red Loctite on a lot of this stuff that I don't intend to really take apart very much. As you can see, this was red Loctite and I was able to get it right back apart. Now, if you have trouble getting this stuff apart, if you go to loosen it, you can't get one of them loose and you've Loctited that stuff, just take your soldering iron. We'll pretend this is your soldering iron. Just lay that on that screw head. Give it a couple seconds, and that should be all you need to break free that Loctite. So you don't need to break out the acetylene torch or get all crazy. Your soldering iron will provide plenty of heat to loosen those things up. It'll cook the Loctite so it lets go. Loctite's basically glue. Next step, we're going to do our link mounts. I'll make sure they're angled inwards. Put my screws through like that. Make sure that way, show you guys so you actually see what I'm doing here. Same as always, start both before you crank any of them down. If these screws aren't going in easy, guys, one, make sure they're straight, and two, look for burrs inside of the threaded holes. Sometimes there'll be a little piece of metal from the manufacturing process down in there causing you trouble. If need be, you can run a tap down there, just clean them threads out. Boom, there's the link mounts. Now, link riser. If you like or don't like link risers, that's an argument for another day. I like them. So this piece will slide right on like so. Get her home. And then the screw, if you notice, this one goes on this side. It's already been started. It's been in there once before. So I'll start this, and then we'll run it home by with the driver. Now, once again, as I said before, you guys are putting these through. It's the wrong driver. If you're running long screws through plastic, be it printed or ABS, or some of these guys are using glass reinforced, like PA nylon, don't go super crazy with your speed driving these screws through, because the friction will heat up and melt that stuff out and it'll be all wallery. I just gotta take my time and let it slowly chew its way in there. Good and snug. Let go. Check my hand. I like it. Now we're down to our pins and our hubs. Now the hubs, the pins for these rear hubs, these are the ultra narrow aluminum rear hubs. When you put these pins in through there, you need to make sure they're not protruding into your wheel hub, your hub holes. See there? That's just the right length to miss both holes. Not be a problem for your screws to hold your wheel to your hub. Yes, so pay attention to that. Now, this part here goes to the outside. So we'll drop that on there, line her up. As you can see, that end of that's chamfered to make that find through easier. So we'll drop her in. Take the pliers, a little tap. Bam. Now, here's what I'm going to do just to make this simple. I'm going to grab a couple of screws. These are my hub screws. I got that pin started. Now, where it goes through those, see right there? I put a screw in it right here. It's already catching up on that pin a little bit. A little tap. She should slide in a little and back her off. We're going to put these screws in just to make sure we locate that pin right before we tighten that set screw. We're not causing ourselves problems later. So I'll run this down through there. And then I'll push the pin in like against that other screw. And then I'll start this one. That way I know for certain that pin is located between these two holes this way, and I'm not going to mess my screws up for my hubs. So then, if you got that in there, oops, I'm just going to drop this through here. We can snag down the set screw that holds that pin good and tight. Now, back these out. Do the other side. So again, that goes to the outside. As you can see, if you look closely here, these screws that hold the hub on, the head, I'm using a real narrow setup on this, will just barely contact that. Once you run those off there once or twice, that'll self-clearance and it won't be an issue. Or you can run a little hub spacer or whatever, or different style of screw. But just something to note, it'll self-clearance a little bit there. Just nothing to worry about. And then you can bolt your hubs on, away you go. Bolt it into your truck. But there you go, folks. That's how you assemble a Rear SSDLUX. Thanks, guys.